Hi again, Black Knight Scholars. This is Mr. Deegan with another VidNotes session. We're studying Unit 7's World War I, and in Lesson 2, we're going to be talking about the major events of World War I. And here you see a collage of photographs and pictures. Our guiding questions. We have two for today. How was World War I an example of modern warfare? This war was the first modern war. We'll talk about that. Guiding question number 2. Why did the U.S. enter the war late? And why did Russia leave the war early? We'll talk about that. Let's review. How did World War I start? Well, there was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, and Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. Remember, the Serbian terrorist group Black Hand plotted the assassination of Ferdinand? Germany backs Austria-Hungary. Why? Because of monarchs' ties, because the German leaders were friends with the Austria-Hungary leaders. And here is the leader of Germany during World War I. His name is Kaiser Wilhelm II. Kaiser is German for emperor, and he was the last German emperor in German history. And when he went to his generals and signed the agreement to start World War I, he said to his generals, "You will regret this, gentlemen." So he was skeptical that Germany could be victorious. Kaiser Wilhelm II, the skeptic. Germany's plan for a quick end. Germany wanted this to end by Christmas. And the Schlieffen Plan was the name of that quick end plan. It was named after this German general, Alfred von Schlieffen. What was the plan? To invade France quickly by going north and then west through the country of Belgium. And Belgium, with its small, weak military, would not fight back. Russia would take 6 weeks to move its troops, and Germany would defeat France in this western part of Europe before Russia is ready to fight. That was the German way of thinking. And this way, Germany avoids a two-front war, which means fighting France to its west and Russia to its east. That sounds difficult. So Germany and the Schlieffen Plan. Let's look at this map in more detail. Boop. So here's Germany, here's France, to the north is Belgium. Germany's plan was to mobilize its troops so that it crossed over Belgium and into France and attack that way rather than attacking through the central and southern part of France where France had well-fortified towns. Did the Schlieffen Plan work? Great Britain joined the Allied powers in August 1914 to defend its ally Belgium, who had remained neutral. When Britain sees that Germany is attacking a neutral country, it has to defend it. And the Russians mobilize quickly, more quickly than Germany expects, and it attacks from the east, and you have a two-front war, which Germany wanted to avoid. In short, the Schlieffen Plan fails. Wah, wah. World War I was characterized by trench warfare, and this trench warfare leads to a stalemate in fighting during World War I. There was a tie for a very long time, and the Allied powers and the Central powers failed to gain ground and take over new land. This diagram is an example of a trench. The soldiers slept there, the soldiers wrote in their diaries there. The soldiers were always on edge that the enemy might attack or might lob grenades or cannons into the trenches. And here are some soldiers with their machine guns waiting out the enemy. And where were these trenches? The majority of the trenches were along the Western Front. This is Europe and Asia, and you see the Western Front here, which is where the trenches would be built. The Eastern Front did not have as many trenches where Germany and Austria-Hungary were fighting Russia and Serbia, etc. Life in the trenches. So to start, you had to dig out your own trenches if you were a soldier. And then once you were there, you got hungry. You got tired. It was dreary. Here are the soldiers trying to cheer themselves up by frying up some rats. There were many rats there. One soldier said he saw rats, quote, as big as cats, end quote. And unfortunately, many soldiers contracted diseases in the trenches. Where did you go to the bathroom? Somewhere in the trenches. It was unsanitary. And some soldiers got trench foot because they couldn't change their shoes or their socks, so their feet contracted diseases. Isn't that disgusting? In addition to trenches, new weapon technologies led to this stalemate in fighting during World War I. The machine gun was first used in World War I, and also gas, chemicals were first used on the battlefield. You see these soldiers here with their gas masks, hoping to prevent poison. And you also see the airplane and the blimp. They were two technologies used during World War I for the first time. And lastly, the tank was introduced into the battlefield during this war. How does the US enter World War I? Well, a couple things. Number one, a German submarine, and German submarines were called U-boats, Unterseeboats, torpedoed a British passenger cruise ship called the Lusitania on May 7th, 1915. 1,100 people die. Many of them are women and children, including 120 Americans. For the first time during the World War I era, American blood has been spilled. An important point is that this cruise ship, the Lusitania, was hiding 173 tons of war munitions for British troops. So this wasn't a completely innocent ship. It was hiding within it weapons and artillery. Here you see the sketch of it going down and some of the survivors in lifeboats. And where was the Lusitania attacked? Here in the Atlantic Ocean, near Great Britain, by the German submarine. After this event, US popular opinion starts to pressure the president at the time, Woodrow Wilson. Here's a newspaper headline from the Washington, D.C. Times. Liner Lusitania sunk by German submarine. Fleet rushes to aid. This is a propaganda poster that says, take up the sword of justice against these Germans who attacked this ship in which women and children died. And you see off in the distance behind Lady Justice is the Lusitania in the Atlantic Ocean. So Woodrow Wilson had a conundrum, a problem. He's running for president for re-election in 1916, and one of his slogans was, "War in Europe, peace in America. God bless Wilson." Well, what was he to do? The second reason that the US enters World War I is because of the Zimmermann telegram. This is Germany's secret plan with Mexico to keep America out of the war. And this spiky helmeted soldier represents a German, and you see this German whispering to this man who represents a Mexican, and he is saying, join with Germany and you will get a bit of the United States land. Arthur Zimmermann was the German who thought up this plan. And here is a real copy of the secret telegram that was sent from Germany to Mexico. And it is in code. You see the numbers. And the destination is Mexico City. Here is the actual language of that coded telegram. To Germany's minister to Mexico. Berlin, January 19th, 1917. On the 1st of February, we intend to begin submarine warfare unrestricted. In spite of this, it is our intention to endeavor to keep neutral the United States of America. If this attempt is not successful, we propose an alliance on the following basis with Mexico, that we shall make war together and together make peace. We shall give general financial support and it is understood that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona. Signed, Arthur Zimmerman, German Secretary of State. So Germany is giving Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas if Mexico finds a way to keep the United States from entering World War I. How will Germany get this land in the first place? I don't know, but that was the proposal. Because of the Lusitania sinking, because the United States gets word that Germany is secretly working with Mexico, the U.S. has enough reason to enter the war, and they do so on April 17th, 1917. The U.S. President Woodrow Wilson asks Congress to declare war on Germany. He says in his speech, "Make the world safe for democracy." We want to enter this war to do that. He also says, when entering World War I, we have no selfish ends to serve. We are not fighting on our land. We are fighting in Europe, going across an ocean in order to make the world safe. That's not selfish, according to Wilson. One of the most important battles for the Americans once they get over to Europe is the Meuse-Argonne Offensive. It starts in September 1918 and ends in November 1918. And it is the largest battle in American history. You've probably never heard of it. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive. This is larger than Gettysburg. This is larger than the Battle of Bunker Hill. 1.2 million U.S. soldiers are brought into fight. 26,000 die. And this is the major battle that brings World War I to an end. A German general who was involved with this battle said this, quote, "The American blow in the Argonne," which is the name of the forest where the Americans fought, "decided the war for the Allies." And here you see how devastating it was. All these trees were blown to bits. And these are American soldiers surveying the enemy. Russia leaves the war early in 1917. But why, Russia? Russian citizens riot in March 1917 within Russia over the Russian government's treatment of food and fuel shortages. And a pro-communism group called the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, this man, overthrew the Russian government in November of 1917, and this new government pulls the Russian troops out of World War I. They want to deal with the problems within Russia rather than trying to fight outside of Russia. And here you see a group of protesters in St. Petersburg Square in Russia, and you see them protesting against the current Russian government. World War I comes to an end on November 11th, 1918. German military leaders sign an armistice, which is an agreement to stop fighting. And here you see the train car where they signed this stoppage of fighting and all of the British, German, and French leaders who were at the table. And you see newspaper headlines, Germans sign armistice, and the World War comes to an end. And we are almost to an end of lesson 2. Please fill out your summary questions. So the Treaty of Versailles is the topic of our next lesson, lesson 3. Until that time, this is Mr. Deegan signing off.